So, giving my Garelli the once over before taking it for a run. We have our VMCC Bring Your Motorcycle event, and I haven't ridden it since the Battlesbridge breakfast meet last year, so I wanted to give it the once over. Got to the rear wheel, fiddled the rear wheel, and as you can see, it looked like the wheel bearing had gone. But then, I don't know if it'll pick up on the camera, I'll have to get another shot of it, but you can see that the wheel bearing is very, very loose in the hub. So, these bearings have been in the machine since 1979, 1980. I think I replaced the original ones with these. They were sealed both sides and the seals are coming off. They feel absolutely fine though, it's just the hub that's worn. So I bought some new bearings. The new bearings, needless to say, are also a loose fit. And then when I have a little look around here, I can see that there's a little bit of deforming on there, a bit more cleaning up to do. So I've got three choices. The first thing, which I don't like, is to get a centre punch and just go around and centre punch all the way around there to deform it, push it out so the bearings are tight fit. But I figure it's just going to go again. The second one is to make use, which is probably what I'm going to do, of some bearing fit. I bought some Loctite because on the spec sheet it says it will take up to 0.25 of a millimetre, and then I was looking through my glue box and I found this bearing fit and stud lock, and it says it will fit parts filling gaps up to 0.5 of a millimetre, so that's what I'm going to try. Or third option for me at the moment, no, that's not it. I've got some shim steel off a friend and I might be able to cut a piece out and put it round and force it in. Ultimately it's either a new hub or a new old stock hub, and the chances of finding that in one of those are minimal. The 10 years since I've rebuilt or when I started rebuilding my Garelli, I don't think I've seen a rear wheel advertised. Or it's taken it to a machine shop, having the centre turned out, a sleeve pushed in so that the bearing will fit. Eventually I'll have to bite the bullet and do that, but for the moment I'm going to start with a stud fit. And before I do that, I'm just going to clean the edges up a bit and then degrease it thoroughly. Cleaned, warmed, new bearing cleaned around the outside, stud and bearing fit. Now, assuming this is quite old, so I'm sorry if you're not going to see this. So, oh no, that's wet enough. Sorry, you can't see, can you? So just got it going all the way around. Bearing, which unfortunately just drops in. Drag for the bits I don't want. Remove heavy and apply to one component. Final fixed position assembled normally. Locking action only commences after assembly. Handling strength will be attained after approximately 15 minutes, with functional strength normally achieved in 45 minutes. So we'll give it a good chunk of time. It's 20 to 12. So we'll see. It's not moving though. So I'll give it a good 45 minutes, a couple of hours, and then I'll come back. So, 2:30 now, so whatever that is, 20 to 12, 20 to 1, 20 to 2, 2.5 hours, so a lot longer. Put the bar in. I know the spindle's loose in the wheel bearing, but I can't see any movement on the bearing, so I'm calling that a win. Interesting. I'll have to scrape that off, won't I, before I do the rest. And should clean that, but that's going to go back in. And then another new bearing. This is a tight fit. And I don't think it needs it, but in goes the little washer there, and that will go on there and it will just seal it up. I've got an old cush drive, it's knackered. I think I have a new one somewhere. New one. Does it match the old one? No, wrong size, that's a shame. I think I knew that anyway. So we're going to be botching this one. So in this goes. Inner tube, scissors. Using tyre soap to try and lubricate so it goes in. Haven't done this before, but we'll see. There we go. Right, 6 mile run done yesterday. Unsuccessful because I got a front puncture, but no play on the bearing. Running very well. So that is a win. So first job is wheel removal. A little bit tight because I think I've got paint and zinc plating on the spindle. And then with the tube out, I found out that my cheap inner tube, the valve had pulled out of the inner tube. So sudden deflation. I was lucky to ride it home actually, it was very wobbly. I struggled to get the tube out. I had put another one in, but that also went flat. And as you'll see in a minute, I ended up nicking the tube when I put it in, so that went flat as well. So there you can see the little nick torn right through the tube. No chance of keeping air. They're cheap enough that I'm not going to repair it. I'll buy a new one. Many of you will know this, but it's always handy to put a little bit of air in the tube. If it's too flaccid, it's easier to get it screwed up or to catch it with the tyre levers. I bought some tyre soap this year for the first time. It's made it a lot easier to get the tyre on. You still need to make sure that the bead sits in the well of the wheel so that you can stretch it over the rim. I checked the bearings at the same time, and whilst they were probably okay, they were a little bit graunchy, so I decided to knock those out and I'll put a new pair in. I don't know if you'll believe me, but these are the original bearings that came with the bike from new in 1977. I think I've repacked them with grease a couple of times, but they've done remarkably well given the treatment that my Garelli had in its early years of life. I don't know if the audio will pick up the sound of the bearings moving. But you can feel a grittiness when you rotate them with your finger. Unlike the back bearings, I've used a bit of heat just to expand the hub a little bit before I've knocked the bearings in with my bearing drift. The new bearings are shielded on both sides, so it probably doesn't need it, but a little bit of grease on the spacer tube for where the spindle goes through and just where it rubs against the inner races of the bearings. A few taps with the bearing drift, and that's both the bearings fitted with the spacer tube in the middle, and then it's on to fitting the wheel. This is always a bit fiddly on any bike. You just have to remember on the Garelli that there's a little tang that comes off the speedo drive that has to fit into a notch in the hub. I've forgotten occasionally, and then you end up carving a groove into the hub. Not good. On my bike it's just easier to drift the spindle in with a rubber mallet. Once it's in position, you can use the Allen key to tighten up the fork leg clamp and then put on the washer and the nut on the other end. I imagine there's a proper torque setting somewhere, but I usually just do it up to experience tight. And okay now, so the tyre and we've done the bearing.